Sheikh Hamdan's wife packed her bags, and he did not stop her. She packed her own bags. That is the detail that matters most. Not a sudden dramatic departure in the middle of the night. Not the kind of leaving that happens when a situation has become unbearable, and escape is the only option available. She packed deliberately, thoughtfully, with the specific intentionality of a woman who has made a decision and is honoring that decision with the same dignity she has brought to everything else in a situation that has never given her much reason for dignity. She packed her bags inside a palace that had everything money and power could provide, every comfort, every luxury, every outward sign that the life being lived there was one that most people would consider extraordinary. And she carried what was hers and she prepared to leave. And Sheikh Hamdan, the crown prince of Dubai, the man she had been married to, the man whose name she carried and whose children she might have hoped to have, and whose life she had been brought into by arrangement and expectation, and the strategic vision of a father who had decided this was the correct configuration. He did not stop her. Not stopping her was its own kind of statement. The most honest one he probably made during the entire duration of the marriage. Because stopping her would have required offering something that he could not honestly offer. A reason to stay that was rooted in genuine feeling rather than in the management of an official arrangement that had stopped being manageable. A version of the future that was different from the version they had both been living, where she was present and dignified and fulfilling every requirement of the role, while he was elsewhere in every way that actually matters. Stopping her would have meant asking her to accept more of what she had already been accepting. And somewhere in the part of him that has always been more honest in private than the official story allows him to be in public, he understood that asking her to accept more of it was something he was not willing to do. So he did not stop her, and she left. The marriage had been struggling since before either of them would have been willing to say it was struggling. That is how these things work when both people involved are operating with dignity and with an awareness of what's at stake beyond their personal feelings. You do not announce the struggle. You manage it, you continue showing up to the events that require showing up to. You present the image that the position requires. You find the ways of maintaining the official surface while the space underneath it is slowly being evacuated of whatever genuinely holds two people together. They had been doing that management for long enough that the exhaustion of it had become its own reason for what eventually happened. There is a limit to how long a person can maintain a surface that has nothing behind it before the maintaining itself becomes the thing that breaks something. She had reached her limit before the packing. The packing was the consequence of reaching it, not the moment of reaching it. The moment of reaching it had been quieter and more private and less visible than the packing. It had been a specific internal decision, the kind that comes after all the other options have been tried and found insufficient, that she was not going to continue, that the official marriage and the official life and the official arrangement of being the wife of the Crown Prince of Dubai was not going to be enough to justify continuing to live inside a reality that had never matched what was officially claimed about it. She had tried patience. She had tried presence. She had tried all the forms of sustained effort that a dignified woman brings to a situation she has decided deserves her best before she decides it has reached its end. And then she decided it had reached its end. Hamdan knew it was coming. The specific quality of the days before she packed was different from the ordinary difficulty of the preceding months. Something had settled in her that had not been settled before, a quality of decision that is different from the ongoing management of a difficult situation. When someone has made a final decision and is living in the days between making it and acting on it, the people close to them can feel the difference. He felt it, and he did not try to prevent the decision that was already made. Did not try to present new reasons or new promises or a new version of the future that might have given her a reason to unmake the decision, because he did not have those things to offer. The honest truth, which he was more in contact with than the official version of his life usually allowed him to be, was that what she was doing made sense, that staying would have cost her more than leaving, and that he was not in a position to change that calculation because changing it would have required changing things that were not fully in his power to change. She carried her bags through a palace that would have looked, to anyone observing from the outside, like an impossible place to leave. The beauty of it, the luxury of it, the sheer scale of everything it represented in terms of comfort and security, and the kind of life that most people spend their entire existence hoping for some fraction of. She carried her bags through all of that, and she left, not because she did not understand what she was leaving. She understood exactly what she was leaving. But understanding the value of a you are walking away from does not always give you a reason to stay. Sometimes the understanding of the value is precisely what clarifies that the leaving is necessary. That a life of genuine meaning, even a smaller, less palatial, less officially significant life, is worth more than a life of official significance that has no genuine meaning behind it. He watched her go. In whatever way he watched, whether present in the room or notified afterward, or simply aware through the specific institutional knowledge of a man whose movements and whose palace are always monitored, even when he would prefer they were not. He knew she was leaving, and he did not stop her. That decision, the decision not to stop her, is perhaps the most decent thing that happened in the entire duration of their marriage. Not because decency requires standing aside and watching something end, but because in this specific situation, standing aside was the only honest option. Stopping her would have required dishonesty, and whatever else can be said about Hamdan, whatever the complications and the private contradictions and the ways in which the official version of his life has diverged from the real one. He has never been fundamentally dishonest about what he feels. The not stopping her was the truth of what he felt finding its only available expression. She left with her dignity. That matters. In a situation where dignity is often the first casualty, where the exposure of the truth and the management of the exposure and the institutional response to everything that had happened could have stripped her of the one thing she had always brought to an impossible situation. She left with it intact. She packed her own bags. She made her own decision. She left on her own terms. And he did not stop her, because stopping her would have been wrong. And because somewhere in the man who writes poetry about love and loss, and the specific weight of a life that was never fully his own, there was enough of the real thing to know that letting her go was the only gift he still had left to give. Subscribe to this channel and hit the bell. Every week I bring you the real story of Sheikh Hamdan, the leaving, the not stopping, and the truth about what happens when two people are finally honest enough with each other to let the ending be what it needs to be.